All right. Hey, how you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ayin Beis, Daf 72 of Masechta Gittin. Friends. Alright, so friends, today we got to use our brains a little bit. Yesterday I think was a little bit easier. Yeah, I had a choice to make yesterday, whether to do the Mishnah and following subsequent Gemara on Daf Ayin Aleph Mud Beis, or to leave it for today. I chose to leave it for today, but that just means that today's a little bit more of a, it's not too crazy, it's not Yevomis, but I don't think that there's any. Yesterday we talked out a shtickle Yevomis. I don't think there's a shtickle Chalitza actually today, but I may tell you, but we gotta go a little bit slowly. Taka, the first Mishnah we saw the other day, Ba'omer Imru. It wasn't the easiest sugya, but I think that this is. I get the feeling that I don't know. Rashi was like a little bit funny on this sugya, like Rashi funny. I guess when you've learned enough. I guess when you've seen enough Rashis, it's a very subtle kind of humor, I guess. But he was, I don't know, it's like unclear. Maybe Rashi had a different girsa where actually this Gemara came before the other one. It seems like it would have been good to learn this Gemara before the other Gemara, but I'll upon him. Okay, so we talk about the machlokas, Reb Meir and Reb Yossi about mile mimsuron the shaliach or not. Which isn't the easiest sugya, but okay, seder. And then we get up to other sort of conditions when it comes to the get. Relatively interesting stuff, I would say. Again, relatively, you know what I mean. Okay, so on Daf Ayin Aleph Amud Beis at the Mishnah, about a little bit, I'd say a tiny bit more than halfway down the Amud on Daf Ayin Aleph Amud Beis. Says the Mishnah, Amrulo, they said to a fellow, Nichtov get leishtecha, shall we write a get to your wife? V'amrlein ksovu, and he says sure. He doesn't say sure. He says right. He says ksovu, write a get. He didn't say tnu. He didn't say give a get. He said write a get. Amru l'sofer v'chasav v'le'edin v'chasmu, and then they didn't write a get. What did they do? They went to a scribe. They said, all right, write a get for this fellow. They went to witnesses. They said, okay, sign the get for this fellow. Afal pisha ksavu v'chasmu v'nasnu lo v'chazu v'nasnu lo. Even though the get was written, it was signed, they then delivered the get to the husband. The husband delivered the get to the wife. Hare haget bottle. The get is null and void. Achiyomer the sofer ksovu le'edim chasomu, until the husband says directly to the sofer, you write the get. You, two people, sign the get. But in this case, where he said to two people, write the get, and they then went and delegated to other people, that does not work. Frekti Gemara, not Frekti Gemara, maybe Frekti Gemara. Eventually Frekti Gemara, says the Gemara, Zok the Gemara. Time of the law tenu. So the reason why the get is null and void is because the husband said, Ksovu. He said to these two people, remember, what's the setup? The setup is the husband says to two people, write the get, but these two people say to a scribe to write the get and to two other witnesses to sign the get. So the reason is the Lamar Tnu. He didn't say to these two people, well, we're actually going to see, it's not, let's actually say it's talking about three people, right? Because remember, we saw a Mishnah the other day that said that Reb Meir's opinion is that if he says to two people, Tnu, or to three people, Kisvu, so then they have to write it themselves. This is Taka, I think, what we saw this machlokas on the other day. But Reb Meir says that if you say to three people, Tnu, and they're a bezdin, they could delegate to other people. So we're saying that the reason, and this is exactly what we're saying over here, that the reason why they cannot delegate is because the fellow said, Kisvu, I want you to write it. But if he would have said to these three people, Tnu, instead of Kisvu, he would have said Tnu, well, in that case, they can delegate to other people. But if he says Ksovu, if he says write it, they can't delegate. And Rashi says because If he says write it, it's because he's a shtickle embarrassed that he doesn't know how to write it himself. So he asks other people to write it, but he doesn't want them to delegate it to other people. But if he says tnu, he doesn't really care. He just says, look, give them a get. If you want to delegate it to other people, delegate it. So, time of the law amar tnu. The reason why they cannot delegate it is because he said kisvu. But if he would have said tnu, right, amar tnu nosnin, so then the get would be fine. Mani Reb Meir. So that is the opinion of Reb Meir. That Reb Meir says, as opposed to Reb Yossi, Reb Meir says, mile mimsur on the shaliach. That a shaliach can, right, that the instructions are given over to the shaliach to then forward to somebody else. And therefore, if he says to 3 people, tnu get the ishti, they can delegate to a sofer and to people to sign it. But because he says kisvu, it doesn't work. Now, of course, Rabbi Yossi had said in the Mishnah that even if you would say to the Sanhedrin, tnu get, they would not be able to delegate because he says, mile lo mimsran, the shaliach. There's somebody outside my bedroom, I can hear it through the closed doors and closed windows, that they keep on slamming their door. I think it's a nachlaot thing. It's a nachlaot minig, that when you get out of your car, you then have to go around to every door and open it and close it. And then you go to the trunk and you open that and close it for good measure, and you do it once more. Anybody who gets out of their car in this neighborhood opens and closes every door on the car. I don't know why. Okay. Now, so Yanki Lazar. So Mililo Mimsron Nishalech. I mean, what happens is when you're trying to go to sleep, somebody pulls up because the cars, they park right outside the windows around here. You know, it's like mamish. I'm telling you, I literally open my window and I'm mamish looking down at the cars that are parked right on the other side of the window. So what happens is when you're trying to go to sleep, people are always parking the car right when you want to go to sleep. So you have to wait for the engine to stop running because the engine shakes the whole building. Because maybe it's the cars around here, but the engines are very loud. So it shakes the whole building. So you got to wait until they finally shut off the engine. Then you got to wait for them to open the door, and then you listen for the first. I'm giving you the whole instructions. Then you have to listen for the first time they slam the door. But then it's not done yet. If you try to go to sleep, they're just going to keep waking you up. You have to wait until at least 3 slams. After that, you stay alert. Just give it 30 seconds. Hopefully, if they didn't, you don't hear any more slams. Hopefully, they're done. Sometimes they could take longer, but you have to wait for a minimum of 3. I don't know why. I guess people like to close doors around here. Okay. So now, I'm not really sure what you're going to do with that information. So everyone around here sleeps with a noise machine. So I sleep with a noise machine, but the slamming of the door rocks the whole building. So the noise, it wakes, it gets you moving. The neighbor next door, of course, I don't think she sleeps with a noise machine. She just yells at everybody. So she'll yell at the people in the park. She should probably just get a noise machine. But I like when she yells at the people because I'll tell you, noise machines are annoying. Like, for example, I wake up in the morning and I want to prepare Babylon Talmud. It's not nice to, in your house, have to have a noise machine because the people outside are so loud. So I kind of like it when she yells at them because it doesn't always work. But let's go weiter. So Mani Reb Meir the Omar Mile Mimsron the Shaliach. Okay, so Reb Meir says that Mile Mimsron the Shaliach, that you can give instructions to a shaliach, and therefore, if there are 3 people there, and they're betzim a bezdin, and he says to them, tnu get liishti, they can delegate to other people, but because he said ksovu, he said write it, so they cannot delegate it. Wow. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's 10 minutes. I mean, Einachinami, I just spoke about people slamming car doors for a few minutes, but yeah, my mom is 3 lines into the Gemara. We still got a lot to do, and it's 10 minutes into the daf. I guess this is going to be a long one. I assumed it was going to be at least 45 minutes, but I don't think it's going to be an hour, but somewhere between 45 minutes and 55 minutes is my guess. Okay, but one second. So we want to say that the Mishnah is Reb Meir, and that he can't delegate because it says ksovu, but if he says tnu, then you can delegate because mila mimsur l'shaliach, but ema seifa. But what does it say at the end of the Mishnah? Ad sheyomar l'sofer ksov v'la'edim chasomu. But it says in the seifa that the husband needs to deliberately say to the scribe, write, and to the signers, sign. You cannot have a situation where somebody is delegating. Well, that sounds like Rabbi Yossi, who says that you can't delegate, you can't forward instructions. A shaliach cannot forward instructions to somebody else. So Reish Rav Meir v'Sefer Rabbi Yossi. So are we saying that the first part of the Mishnah is Rav Meir, but the last part of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi? That's strange. In Reish Rav Meir v'Sefer Rabbi Yossi, and for the Gemara, actually, that's correct. The first part of the Mishnah is Rav Meir, the second part of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi. As strange as it sounds, that's the Metzias. Abaye Yomar, Kula Rav Meir. So Abaye says nisht. The whole Mishnah is Rav Meir, including the Seifa. But here we're talking about a situation where he didn't say tnu. He said ksovu. And because he says ksovu, the get would only be valid if he said if the people who wrote it and signed it were instructed deliberately to write it and sign it. Even according to Rav Meir. That if we're saying that it's Rav Meir, and that if he were to have said tenu, then they would be able to instruct other people to write it and sign it. Well, then the Seifa shouldn't say that it's only kosher if the husband directly tells the scribe to write and the signers to sign. Say the more interesting chiddush, which is it's not kosher until he says tenu. But if he says tenu, then you would be able to say to a scribe to write and a signer to sign. We should say that. That's the bigger chiddush. But we don't say that. So we could say, yeah, but you know what? It is Rav Meir, and the reason why he has to directly tell the scribe to write and the signers to sign, and he can't even say tnu, is because it's talking about two people. He's talking about two people. And as we know from the Mishnah, from the other daf, that if he says to two people, even if he says to them tnu, they can't forward it to somebody else. He would have to say it to three people. But here there's two, therefore they can't forward it. And only the people who he deliberately, directly instructs, write and sign, only they can write and sign. If that's the case. But again, just like we suggested a minute ago, that if it was about tnu versus ksovus, then just say tnu, and that's a more interesting chiddush. So here also say, okay, it's not a good get until he says to three people. But if he says it to three people, so then they can forward the instructions to other people. That would be more interesting. Why are we being more stringent and saying, no, he has to tell the scribe to write and the witnesses to sign? Why? Let him just say to three people, and then he can say tnu, and they can forward it to other people. Elakula Rabbi Yossi, daram pamparam. So rather, the Gemara answers, oh, you know what? Fine, forget it. We didn't have success explaining how the Meir is how the Mishnah is entirely Rav Meir. Rather, let's take the opposite route. That the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi. Okay, so if the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi and Mile lo mimsur l'shaliach, well, if that's the case, then how do you explain the first part? Because the first part we had said implies that if he says tnu, then he would be able to forward the instructions. But Rabbi Yossi says Mile lo mimsur l'shaliach. To which we say, look, that's not the correct diuk. That's not the correct inference. No, even if he says tnu, forget about it. You can't forward it because mile lo mimsur l'shaliach v'achav ma'askinon tilei omar imru. But the reason why it doesn't work in this case, that when he says ksovu, it doesn't work, is because he didn't say imru. The husband did not instruct these people imru l'sofer v'yichtov v'le'edim v'yachtmu, whatever. That the husband did not instruct, say to a scribe to write it and to witnesses to sign it. He didn't say that. He said ksovu, and that's why they can't be forwarded. But if you would say imru, then the instructions would be able to be forwarded. Yochi. If that's the case, we're going to ask the same kind of kasha on the Seifa. In the Seifa, why are we saying the husband must say to the scribe to write directly and directly to the witnesses to sign? But one second. Not necessarily. He could say imru. He could say to the people, say to a scribe to write and to witnesses to sign it, and then it would be okay. It would be kosher, even if they instructed a scribe to write and witnesses to sign. Ve'od, and more so, mimo de Reb Yossi ba'omer imru. Does Reb Yossi even say that? Bichlal imru. This is mamish pulled out of the other daf. Ve'otnan, we have a mishnah that says, kosav sofer ve'ed kosher. That if a scribe writes a get together with a witness, it's a kosher get. Ve'omer Reb Yirmiyah chosam sofer shaninu. And Reb Yirmiyah says it's talking about when they signed it. That if the scribe signs a get together with a witness, that is kosher. And Rabbi Chisda says that the Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi. So now, that Rabbi Yossi says Mili Mimsol L'Shaliach. So if we put this all together, it's going to create a mess. What's all of this? That if Rabbi Yossi says Mile Lo Mimsol L'Shaliach, that the Shaliach cannot forward instructions to anybody else. And also, the scribe is permitted to sign with a witness, and that's kosher. Well, then if you would additionally say that Omer Imru is okay, well, then you can get yourself into a messy situation. What's the messy situation? And if it enters your mind that Rabbi Yossi admits by Omer Imru that if he says to these people, say to a scribe to write and to witnesses to sign, Nofik Minei Churva, you'll have mamash a mess. Because what can happen is the husband can say to two people, Imru l'sofer v'yichtov, go and say to a scribe to write the get, v'lflonu v'yachtmu, and to so and so to sign. But these people are going to feel embarrassed on behalf of the sofer. Come on, it's not bekovadik to the sofer that he shouldn't be able to sign it, right? So the sofer and they're going to have him be one of the witnesses, because after all, Rabbi Yossi says Omer Imru is okay. That he could say to these two people to tell a scribe to write it and two witnesses to sign it. Also, we know that, right, if we're saying that this Mishnah is like Rabbi Yossi, that the scribe is allowed to sign together with one of the witnesses, and that's kosher. But the problem is, Rabbi Yossi says, that the shaliach is not allowed to forward instructions on his own. And therefore, in this case, what could happen is that these people who were instructed by the husband will feel bad, and they'll have the scribe sign together with one of the witnesses, but that's not what their instructions were, and they can't make up their own instructions. They can't give their own instructions. The husband didn't say to do this. So rather, look, we have no choice but to say, like we initially said, that the first part is Reb Meir, the second part is Reb Yossi, because if you try to explain the whole Mishnah being either Reb Meir or Reb Yossi, you get yourself into trouble. Friends, we're 20 minutes into daf and we're mamish just getting started. 5 lines into today's daf. Okay, yeah, I guess it's going to be a long one today. Because the next Mishnah is not easy either. It's not insane. It's not easy. Rav Ashi Omar, Kula Reb Yossi. Rav Ashi Taka says, actually, you can say that the entire Mishnah is Reb Yossi. Velomi Baya Omar. The whole Mishnah is building on, onto itself, one step at a time. Lomi Baya Eicha Dilo Omar Tnu. Don't say that, look, the reason why the get is batal is because he didn't say Tnu, he said Kisvu. Ksovu. Eli Omar Tnu Lo. Ela Afilu Omar Tnu Lo. Rather, even if he said Tnu, it wouldn't work, because Reb Meir says Rabbi Yossi says Mililo Mimshon L'Shaliach. V'lo mibaya eicha d'lo amar levei tlasa. And don't say, and certainly where he only said to 2 people, Ela afilu amar levei tlasa lo. But even if he says to 3 people, and they're a bezdin, no. V'lo mibaya eicha d'lo amar imru. And certainly if he didn't say to them, Imru, right? Say to a scribe to write and to witnesses to sign, Ela afilu amar Imru, namilo. Even if he said, go and instruct them. Rabbi Yossi says, Omer Imru doesn't work. Tani Kavosu de Rav Ashi, we have a brayso like Rav Ashi, supporting Rav Ashi. Kosav Sofer Lishma, if that even in a situation where the Sofer wrote the get Lishma, V'chasmu Edim Lishma, and the witnesses signed the get Lishma. Afal Pisha Kasvu, V'chasmu, they wrote it, they signed it, V'nasnu lo, and they gave it to the husband, V'nasnu unisanu lo, and he gave it to the wife. Harei get bottle. The get is no good, it's null and void. Ad yishmu kolo, until the people who signed and wrote the get heard the voice directly from the husband, heard the husband's voice, sheyomar l'sofer, that he says directly to the scribe, ksov, write the get, v'la edim chasomu, and to the witnesses, sign it, yishmu, lafuki mimando omar, modu Rabbi Yossi bomer imru, they have to hear it directly from the husband, to the exclusion of those who say that Rabbi Yossi admits by imru. No, he does not. They have to hear directly from the husband. Kolo, and they have to hear his voice. Lafukim Rav Kahana Amarav, to exclusion of what Rav Kahana Amarav said yesterday, that if you have Pikeach Shenischaresh and he knows how to write, so Rav Kahana had said in the name of Rav that he can instruct via writing to divorce his wife. No, Kolo, his voice, he can't instruct via writing. Okay, Chevre, now we're 20 minutes into the daf, and okay, we did the first, look, Lemaisa, we did the first Mishnah. We did a full Mishnah. It wasn't an easy Mishnah. Now we have another Mishnah that we're going to do. It's definitely not impossible, but it requires a little bit of brains. All right. So now, says the Mishnah, Zagitech imati. This is your get if I die. Now, this is understood to mean, this is, and the Gemara is going to ask about this, but it's understood to mean this is your get after I die. Zagitech mecholizeh. This is your get. If I understand Rashi correctly, it means from this sickness and on. So meaning if a fellow has a sickness that he ultimately dies from, so he's saying from the sickness and on, well, the sickness and on is after he died because he never healed from the sickness. Zagitech lachamisa. He says explicitly, this is your get after I die. No amar klum. In any of these cases, that's not a kosher get because ein get lachar misa. You can't give a divorce document. The divorce document can't be given after the fellow is dead. Once he's dead, she's a widow. Me'ayom imati. But if he says from today, if I die, then it's a condition. Then he's saying that if I die, you are divorced from today. Okay, so then she's divorced from that day. Me'achshav imati. Or if he says from now, if I die. Well then, harei get, it is a kosher get, because he's making a condition. This is a get if I die, so when he dies, when he dies, so then she's divorced from that day. Me'ayom ula achar misa. Now this is an interesting one. From today and after I'm dead, well in that case, get ve'eno get. In that case, we're not sure. Ve'meis choletzes lo misyabemes. And if he dies and now becomes a chalitza situation, a yibum situation, so he can't do yibum because he might be divorced, in which case it's eishes och. But he also can't do nothing because maybe he's still married, in which case he has to do something. So you do chalitza just to avoid, that's kind of the riskless. Is there a word for riskless? The safest? Yeah, riskless. Yeah, right. Right, I feel like riskless and safe. Yeah, I feel like those are synonyms. If riskless is even a word, but safe, that's the safest road. Now, why is this a suffix? Because we're not sure if it's a tanai or if he's being choser. Meaning, if he says me'ayom ula achar misa, is he saying, is it a condition? Me'ayom, it's like basically me'ayom imati, from today if I die, or is he saying me'ayom and then he's changing his mind and saying no, after I die. But after I die, obviously it's not a good get. So we're not sure. So we say, we're not sure, and that if he dies in terms of like yibum and stuff, if they don't have kids, so then she does chalitza. Zagitech me'ayom imati mecholi zeh. If he says, this is your get from today, if I die from my current disease that I have now. But then he got up and things were looking okay. He went to the shuk. Went to Shuk Machne Yehuda. What did he buy? What did he buy at Shuk Machne Yehuda? What do you guys like to buy at Shuk Machne Yehuda? What do I buy in Shuk Machne Yehuda? Well, apples, right? Materials for salad. What else do I buy in Shuk Machne Yehuda? I think that's about it. Friday I buy a few things. Alright. Oh, nuts, of course. Nuts. Buy nuts in Shuk Machne Yehuda. Sometimes dates. We talked about the dates recently, right? Sometimes, when they're good, but recently they haven't been my thing. The figs are coming now. The figs of Eretz Yisrael. I could probably start buying. Maybe even tomorrow I could buy figs. Ooh. The figs of Eretz Yisrael, next level. Okay. Zagitech me'ayom imati micholi zeh ve'amad v'alach b'shuk. And he went to Shuk Machne Yehuda to buy figs. V'cholav ha'meis. But then he got sick again and he died. So now it's tricky. Omdin also imach mascholi arishon meis. So we have to evaluate him. If he died from the initial sickness, well, that was his condition, that if I die from the sickness, you're divorced from today. But, sorry, it's a get, it's a good get. V'imlav, ain't no get. But, if it was determined to be an andra sickness, a new sickness, a different sickness, so then that wasn't the condition in the get, and therefore she's a widow. Fine. Now, we said in the Mishnah that, Zagitech imati, we say, lo amar klum. It's irrelevant. So therefore, so clearly then, imati means this, he's saying this is your get after I die. But v'hader tani, me'ayom imati, me'achshav imati, but then we're talking about from today imati, from now imati, and we're saying that you're divorced from today, which means that it doesn't mean that it's talking about after death. Alma imati lav kelachar misa dami, which means that imati is not talking about after death, because if it was, ein get lachar misa. But if it says me'ayom imati, it's a good get. So I don't understand, what's the deal with imati? Is it after death? Is it before death? So Mabai imati shtei lishon is mashma. That imati could be understood in two ways. Mashma kime'achshav, mashma kelachar misa. It could be understood to refer to her being divorced now, and it could also refer to her being divorced after death, which of course doesn't work. So if he says me'ayom imati, what he's saying is you are divorced from today if I die, which means that when he dies, she's divorced from today. So me'achshav dami lo amar la me'ayom, but if he didn't say me'ayom, so kamanda amar la la'achar misa dami. So then what he's saying is that you are divorced after I die, which of course doesn't work, and get la'achar misa. Okay, friends, now you have to use your brains a little bit. I mean, from the beginning of this mission already, we had to use our brains, to understand what's going on. But now, shtickle sugya coming up. But this sugya is going to take us to the end of the daf, right? All right. Now, zog the Gemara. Zagitech imati lo amar klum. So the Mishnah had said that this is your divorce, this is your get, imati. If I die, lo amar klum, we said it doesn't work because that's be'etzem after he dies and ain't get lachar misa. Fine. Amar Rav Huna v'chol letzes. Says Rav Huna that if the husband dies, she has to do chalitza. We had said lo amar klum, that it's irrelevant because right, he's basically saying that the get is going to be after he dies, but ain't get lachar misa, so it's irrelevant. But says Rav Huna that she has to do chalitza. V'lo amar klum katani. But the Mishnah says that lo amar klum, it's irrelevant. Lo amar klum da asira la'alma v'liyavam nami asira. Okay, I don't really understand how this makes sense, but what we say is lo amar klum means that she's also to everybody. She's asira la'alma. She's also to everybody because she's not divorced, she's married. But she's also asura to the yavam. Oh, uliyavam nami asir. Oh, it maybe means like she's also to everybody, including even the yavam. Okay, and therefore she has to do chalitza. But one second. For me, the seifa choletzes michadereshi abume nami miyabma. But one second. The Mishnah was not scared to tell us to do chalitza. If you remember in the Mishnah, there was a case in which there was chalitza. If he says me'ayom ula achar misa, said the Mishnah, hariz a get ve'eno get v'choletzes v'lo misabemis, if I'm quoting correctly. So there was a case in the Mishnah where the Mishnah says the halacha is that she does chalitza. This was not that case. Hariz a gittin chimati was lo amar klum. It's not chalitza. So then, I don't understand. Why is Rav Huna saying that she has to do chalitza? The Mishnah told us when she has to do chalitza. That's when it's me'ayom ula achar misa. But hariz a gittin chimati, she doesn't do chalitza. Lo amar klum. It's nothing. It's nothing at all. She's still married. And if he dies and they don't have children, she can even do yibum. What are we talking about? Why does she have to do chalitza? So masnisin kirabonon Rav Huna dama kirab Yosi. Damazman shel shtay machiach olav. Oh. Wah. So the Mishnah, which says that specifically by me'ayom ula achar misa, you have to do chalitza, but harei ze gitech imati lo amar klum, that is the rabbis. However, what the Mishnah did not tell us was that there is a dissenting opinion, that of Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi's opinion is mano shel shtay mochiach olav, that the time written in a document is relevant. And therefore, if the date in the document is today, and he says, this is your get when I die, if I die, he's be'etzem, according to Rabbi Yossi, what he's saying is mehayom imati, because there's a date on that document. And that date is relevant. It's today. And he's be'etzem, what he's saying to her is mehayom imati, and we know that the halacha is mehayom imati. It's a divorce. But then, says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi chalitza nami lo tibai. But if we're saying that Rav Huna is saying like Rabbi Yossi, that zmano shel shtay mochiach olav, that the time in the document is relevant, and therefore he's be'etzem saying me'ayom imati, well, the halacha there is, it's a good divorce, and they're divorced, which means she shouldn't have to do yibum, she shouldn't even have to do chalitza. Nothing. She's divorced. So she shouldn't even have to do chalitza. Why is Rabbi Yossi suggesting, why is Rav Huna saying that she has to do chalitza? V'chi tema mesap galei Rav Huna, ihilchasa Rabbi Yossi, i'ein halacha Rabbi Yossi. And if you are going to say, and if you're going to say that, well, Rav Huna isn't sure actually if the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi or like the rabbis. And if the halacha is like the rabbis, so then it would be not a get at all. And if it's like Rabbi Yossi, well then it would be a good get. But he's not sure. Do we paskin like the rabbis or do we paskin like Rabbi Yossi? He doesn't know. So he says, look, just do chalitza just in case, because I don't know. She might be divorced, in which case she has to do nothing. She might be married, in which case she can even do yibum. We don't know. We don't know if it's like the rabbis and she's married, or like Rabbi Yossi and she's divorced. And therefore, do chalitza. Umi misapkale. But is that true? Is Rav Huna really unsure? No, he's not unsure. Rav Huna knows for sure that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. V'Rabbi bar Avua chalash. There was an incident, there was a maaseh where Rabbi bar Avua was sick. U'legabi Rav Huna Rav Nachman. And Rav Huna went with Rav Nachman to Rabbi bar Avua. Now we often quote Rav Nachman Amar Rabbi bar Avua. Now Rav Nachman and Rav Huna were contemporaries. And I guess, you'll see in this story that it sounds like Rav Nachman was closer with Rabbi bar Avua than Rav Huna was. But Rav Huna went with Rav Nachman to visit Rabbi bar Avua, who was sick. Amar le Rav Huna le Rav Nachman, and Rav Huna says to Rav Nachman, Be'imine me Rabbi bar Avua, Rav Nachman, can you ask Rabbi bar Avua? You see, it sounds like Rav Nachman was closer to him. Halacha Rabbi Yossi or ein halacha? Is the halacha like Rabbi Yossi or not? Amar le. Rav Nachman says to Rav Huna, I don't understand. Taima de Rabbi Yossi lo yadainu. Halacha iboi mine? I don't even understand Rabbi Yossi's opinion. I'm going to ask him if the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Like, it would make sense if I'm going into Rabbi bar Avua, understanding the case, understanding the facts, understanding the machlokes, Rabbi Yossi, the Rabbanon, and I'm asking him a shaila. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I don't understand pshat in Rabbi Yossi. and I'm going to ask him what the halacha is. So first I should understand, shouldn't I first understand what I'm talking about? Amrle, so Rav Huna says, look, at boy mine halacha, you just ask Rabbi Bar Avua what the halacha is. Is it like Rabbi Yossi, or is it like the Rabbanon? V'taimei, the Rabbi Yossi ana min halacha, and I'll explain to you Rabbi Yossi's position. Boy mine, so Rav Nachman asked Rabbi Bar Avua, is the halacha like Rabbi Yossi or like the Chachamim? Amrle hachi amar Rav. Rabbi Bar Avua says that this is what Rav said. Halacha Rabbi Yossi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. L'vasur denofak Amarle, and then after Rav Nachman had already asked the kasha and they left, so Rav Huna explained to Rav Nachman, Hanutam Rabbi Yossi. This is pshat with Rabbi Yossi, the kasavas manashal shtar muchiach olav, that he holds that the time written in the document is relevant, and the time written in the document is relevant. So we see from that Maaseh that Rav Huna asked the Shaila. He asked Rabbi Bar Avua, or he had Rav Nachman ask Rabbi Bar Avua, is the halacha like Rabbi Yossi, or is the halacha like the Chacham? Rabbi Bar Avua quoted Rav Huna's Rebbe, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. So you can assume that Rav Huna holds that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. So therefore, if Rav Huna holds that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, that's manash shtar mochiach olav. So in the situation of harizah gittin mati, Rabbi Yossi would say that's be'etzem me'ayom and mati, so it should be a good get. Why should you even have to do chalitza b'chlal? So ella misap galei I Rabbi Yossi bal peh ilo amar. Rav Huna wasn't enochinami. Rav Huna says the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. However, he says for sure, if written in the document itself, it said the date, and it also said imati. So in that case, you have a document that has both a time and also imati. So it's be'etzem me'ayom imati, and she's divorced. But our Mishnah is talking about, he's saying it verbally. The document, of course, the get, of course, has a date on it, but then he gives it to her and he says, this is your get if I die. Well, in that case, now Rabbi Yossi is not sure. Enochinami, the time written in the get is relevant, but then when he gave it to her, he's now adding new information that's not in the document, which is imati, and now he's not sure. Is it me'ayom imati? Right? Do we say no? It's ki'ilu, it's me'ayom imati, and therefore it's a divorce, or do we say that he's rescinding the date, meaning it says the date in the document, but now when he's giving it, he's saying, you know what? Forget that. I'm changing it. It's imati. I'm saying this now. I'm adding this new information now. It's imati. It's when I die. In which case, it's not a good get. So we're not sure if Rabbi Yossi would say the same thing in the situation, right? Yom Rabbi Yossi Baal Peh Ilo Amar. Would Rabbi Yossi also say, like in our Mishnah, where he says Baal Peh imati, if he would still say Zmano Shel Shtar Mochiach Olav, and it would be a good get? So that's why Rabbi Yossi says in our Mishnah, Shinisidu Chalitza. Umi Mesapkale. But is that true? Is Rav Huna really uncertain if Rabbi Yossi says Zmano Shel Shtar Mochiach Olav even Baal Peh? V'yotanam, we learn in the Mishnah, Reza Giteh. Here is your get. Okay, he's saying it verbally. Here's your get. Im lo basi mikan ba'ad yud beis chodesh. If I don't come back in 12 months, if you never see me again for 12 months' time, you're divorced. Umeiz besoch yud beis chodesh, and he dies during that time. And now the question is, was she already divorced or not? Was she divorced at the time of the death? Is she a grusha or is she an almana? Does she have to do yibum? Eino get. So we say it's not a good get because it's only a good get after 12 months. At that point, he's already dead. But we teach about it. That the rabbis, however, said that she can get married and she doesn't have to do yibum. And who are these rabbis? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Beidina Deshar Mishcha was the bezin that permitted the oil. It's a Gemara in Masechta Avodah Zarah. It's Rav Yehuda Nesiya, says Rashi. Boom. And they hold, like Rabbi Yossi says, Zmano Shel Shtar Mochiach Olav, that the time on the document is relevant, and therefore she was already divorced at the time that she received the document, and therefore at the time that he died, she was already divorced. So we see that even when it's Baal Peh, Rabbi Yossi still says, Zmano Shashtar Muchiach Olav. And if Rav Huna holds like Rabbi Yossi, so then seemingly in our Mishnah, he should say that when he says Arezeh Gitech Imati, it's be'etzem me'ayom Imati, and they should be divorced. Why does she have to do chalitza? El mesapkele i'alocha Rabbi Yossi Baal Peh or in alocha. So we say, you know what? Sure, Rabbi Yossi's opinion is both if it's written in the document and if it's Baal Peh. But maybe Rav Huna knows for sure that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi when it comes to when it's written in the document. But maybe when it's Baal Peh, maybe the halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi. But is Rav Huna really uncertain in that case? But Rave says, Hareze gitech imati. This is your get imati. Visha animes, and that I die. Hareze get. It's a good get. It's taka good get. Kisha amus. When I die, and after death, ein ze get. It's not a good get. Heichi damim. What are we talking about? Ilema de amar la me'ayom. And if we're saying it's talking about where it says me'ayom, right? So Hareze get me'ayom imati. And we're saying it's kosher. V'rabbanan. It's the opinion of the rabbis. Do we have to say that? But it's not me'ayom imati Hareze get. We already learned in our Mishnah explicitly. The rabbis say me'ayom imati is a good get. So why do I need Rava to teach me that? Svel lav lo amar la me'ayom. It must be that he didn't say me'ayom in mati, and still we're saying it's a good get. Rabbi Yossi, and it's Rabbi Yossi. Shma min halacha Rabbi Yossi. So it seems that Rava is paskening like Rabbi Yossi. So it sounds like the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, even when it's Baal Peh. And for the Gemara, look, Rava pshitala. Yeah, maybe it's clear to Rava that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, but the Rav Huna mesapeh. Rav Huna is not sure. Rav Huna is not sure if we pasken like Rabbi Yossi also when it comes to Baal Peh. And because he's not sure, so in the case of our Mishnah, when it's Baal Peh and it says imati, we don't know. Is it like the rabbis, in which case she's not divorced, or is it like Rabbi Yossi, in which case she is divorced, and therefore she does chalitza? Alternatively, the olam de amar la me'ayom v'rabonon. Or maybe you could say that it is like the rabbis, that he said me'ayom imati, and that's why it's a good divorce. If you're going to say, but don't we already know that from our Mishnah? Yeah, we do. But we don't know she'ani meis in the Mishnah. We didn't know kisha amus in the Mishnah, right? Rava's statement included not just imati and la'achar misa, but also l'chshe'ani meis and also l'chshe amus. Those weren't in the Mishnah. So v'hani lishne it's trichalei. So therefore we needed Rava to teach me about these other cases. She'ani meis ki imati dami. That when he says she'ani meis, it's like imati. That when he says me'ayom imati, me'ayom she'ani meis, it's a kosher get. Kisha amus kila'achar misadami. When he says kisha amus, so then it's like kila'achar misadami, and it is no good. So you could say that Rav is talking about the Rabbanon. He's not talking about Rabbi Yossi. So you could say that Rav Huna is taka not sure how if we paskin like Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah, and therefore he says that. You should do chalitza just in case. Right? He's not sure if when he says imati, imati, Baal Peh, if the halacha would be like the Rabbanon, that it is not a good get and she's married and she would do yibum, or is it like Rabbi Yossi that it is a good get and she's divorced from today and she would not have to do yibum or chalitza. So we say, look, just do chalitza. Oh, and there are those who say that Rav Huna is not talking about imati. That's more complicated, right? That me'ayom imati. Why does he say that she has to do chalitza? Those who say that Rav Huna is talking about aseifa zegitech la'achar misa lo amar klum. That the Mishnah had said that this is your get after I die. So then he says absolutely it's nothing. It's nothing at all. This is your get after I die. It's nothing at all. Amar Rav Huna. But then Rav Huna points out, but to the divrei Rabbi Yossi. But according to Rabbi Yossi, who says Mano Shashtar Muchiach Olav, well then it's be'etzem me'ayom ula'achar misa. Well, we know that in the Mishnah we said explicitly me'ayom ula'achar misa get ve'ena get v'choletzes v'lo misyabemes choletzes, and therefore she has to do chalitza according to Rav Huna. But pshita, but that sounds obvious. Midasefer the Rabbanon choletzes Well, if the rabbis say that when he says me'ayom ulachar misa, you have to do chalitza, well then, Reisha Nami, where am I? Reisha Nami, the Rabbi Yossi choletzes. Well then, Rabbi Yossi, who would say Zman Shashtar Mochiach Olav, at the time written in the document is relevant. So then, even if he simply says but we know Zman Shashtar Mochiach Olav, so that's be'etzem me'ayom ulachar misa. So it would be the same halacha that choletzes v'lo misya be'emes. So why do I need Rav Huna to say that? If I know Rabbi Yossi's opinion, which is so obviously then I also know that you would have to do chalitza. What's the chiddush of Rav Huna? Well, I may have thought that Rabbi Yossi holds like Rebbe with regard to me'ayom ulachar misa. So we saw in our mission the opinion of the Chachamim, who say me'ayom ulachar misa get ve'eno get. Rebbe would argue and say me'ayom ulachar misa it's a good get. She's divorced from today. It's a good get. So maybe Rabbi Yossi holds like Rebbe that it's a good get. So to which we say that Rabbi Yossi does not hold like Rebbe. Rabbi Yossi holds like the Chachamim, that by me'ayom ulachar misa get ve'eno get, and therefore even if you simply say la'achar misa, but because Zman Shashtar Mochiach Olav it's be'etzem me'ayom ulachar misa, so therefore he would say that she has to do chalitza, unlike Rebbe who would say it's a get and she doesn't have to do chalitza. Right? So ma'adetema Rebbe b'hak Rabbi Yossi b'hak Rebbe svirle da'amar Gittin ma'alya have v'chalitza nami lo tiboi, that Rebbe would say it's a good get and she wouldn't have to do chalitza kamash malon. So therefore it's letting us know Dilo Rebbe Savila Rabbi Yossi. Rebbe does not hold like Rabbi Yossi that Zman Shashtar Mochiach Olav. Rebbe does not hold like Rabbi Yossi. V'lo Rabbi Yossi Savila Rebbe, and Rabbi Yossi does not hold like Rebbe, who says that by me'ayom ulachar misa it's a good get. Rebbe lo Savila Rabbi Yossi. Rebbe does not hold like Rabbi Yossi the katani kozeh get, as we're going to see in a second. That Rebbe says that this is a get, lemutei de Rabbi Yossi, to the exclusion of Rabbi Yossi, who says Zman Shashtar Mochiach Olav. Rabbi Yossi lo savak like Rebbe, and Rabbi Yossi doesn't know like Rebbe the katani kozeh get, that Rabbi Yossi also in a brisa says like this is a get, lemutei de Rebbe, to the exclusion of Rebbe, who says that me'ayom ulachar misa is a good get. My Rebbe Mai, no, what's this case of Rebbe where he says kozeh get to the exclusion of Rabbi Yossi? The Tanya, as we learn in a brisa, me'ayom ulachar misa, this is your get from today and after misa. Get ve'eno get the Chacham say it's a suffix. I don't know if it's a get or not. Rebbe Omer kozeh get. Rebbe says this is a good get. Kozeh get, like this is a good get, to the exclusion of Rabbi Yossi, who says Mano Shashtar Mochiach Olav. Rabbi Yossi, Mai, what's the case of Rabbi Yossi? Ditnan, as we learn in the Mishnah, Kisvu usnu get leishti im lobasi mikan vad yud beis chodesh. Right, if I don't come back in the next 12 months, I want you to write and deliver a get to my wife. Within the 12 months they wrote the get, and then they only delivered it, and then they delivered it after the 12 months when he didn't show up. Ain't no get. Tanakama says it's not a good get. They would have to wait till the end of 12 months. If he doesn't show up, then they write and deliver the get. But if they write the get during the 12 months, then it's not a good get. Rabbi Yossi Omer kozeh get. Rabbi Yossi says it's a good get, but kozeh, like this is a good get, to the exclusion of Rebbe, who says that in the case of me'ayom ulachar misa it's a good get. No, Rabbi Yossi does not hold like Rebbe. Okay, fine. Friends, that was daf Ayin Beis of Masechta Gittin. Okay, it wasn't the easiest stuff, wasn't the hardest stuff. We had to use our brains to shtickle, right? We talked at the beginning about the machlokas between Reb Meir and Reb Yossi about Mile Mimsuran the Shaliach, like Reb Meir says, or Reb Yossi says Mile Lo Mimsuran the Shaliach. And then we got to this new Mishnah that I think is going to be the focus for only till tomorrow, about different stipulations about Ein Get La'achar Misa, and how that works. We saw the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, who says Mano Shashtar Mochiach Olav, and that Rav Huna holds like Rabbi Yossi. So that was interesting. Friends, that was daf Ayin Aleph, or Ayin Beis of Masechta Gittin. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, peace out.